At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
Atheists, agnostics, long-haired weirdos, short-haired weirdos, vandals, hooligans.
The government, hug the government, love the government, hug the government, love the government, hug the government.
Welcome to the Politics Guys, a place for bipartisan, rational, and civil debate on American politics and policy. I'm Trey Orndorff, a political scientist at Oklahoma Christian University. And I am joined, as always, by Ken Katkin, a professor of law at Chase Law School. Ken, welcome to the Politics Guys midweek show, which for us, of course, is the midweek Constitution show.
It's great to be back.
Yeah, I mean, this is our element, I feel. Listen, I love keeping up. You know, that can be fun, but it's also exhausting. And so one of the things that is fun about our midweek show is we are not trying to precisely keep up with anything. We're trying to go through thematically something, and that something has been the United States Constitution. And we've started with the preamble. We've gone through each of the articles, all of the sections, and we are now to the 18th Amendment. But we're going to do something a little bit unprecedented. To this point, Ken and I, although we have sometimes hit on things that have changed or moved around as we've worked through, we've only ever done the Constitution sequentially. However, for this particular episode, it did not make sense to me or to Ken to do the 18th Amendment apart from the 21st Amendment, just for timing reasons, but also because they go together. Now, what's weird about it, of course, is the 18th and 20th and 21st Amendments, they effectively, as a result of each other, mean that they have no standing, right? They're not. So we're going to cover a part of the Constitution that is effectively not a part of the Constitution anymore. So what do I mean by all of this? Well, the 18th Amendment actually is the Prohibition Amendment. It means that you couldn't sell, produce, or in any way else have alcohol in the United States. And so, as a matter of fact, what it says specifically straight from the 18th Amendment is this, quote, "After 1 year from the ratification of this article, the manufacture, sale, or transportation of intoxicating liquors within, the importation thereof into, or the exportation thereof from the United States and all territory subject to the jurisdiction thereof for beverages purposes is hereby prohibited." There's a paragraph for you, but it goes on. "The Congress and the several states shall have concurrent power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. This article shall be operative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by the legislatures of the several states as provided in the Constitution within 7 years from the date of the submission hereof to the state by the Congress." Now, that last part is a little bit historically interesting, Ken, because there had been some debate before you started having these. Well, how long could constitutional amendments kind of be out on the table? And we've talked about that a little bit, but that's why, you know, as we kind of come here to the 18th Amendment, that's why you get that last paragraph going on. I think from our point of view, that seems really strange. You know, I've never asked you this question, Ken. Are you a teetotaler?
I actually am, but I'm not in favor of prohibition.
Yeah, yeah. How funny. Yeah. Okay, so I am not, but that's I've wondered. Yeah. So there was a lot of I think well-meaning ideas that went behind the idea of prohibition. the 18th Amendment, it gets passed in 1919, and it's really the result of decades of activism from both temperance movements and women's movements. And for our point of view, we don't always kind of put this together, but an early identifying female movement was prohibition, because the idea was it's alcohol that is creating a lot of the domestic violence that is occurring in homes. That was kind of one of the big pushes that was going forward. And so if we get rid of alcohol, the idea is a lot of these social problems, domestic violence, poverty, and crime, are going to be alleviated. And so the 18th Amendment is ratified on January 16th, 1919. It takes effect, as we just read about there, on January 17th, 1920. And it prohibited the manufacture, sale, or transportation of alcoholic beverages. And what ended up happening as a result of this was, as a matter of fact, a lot more criminal behavior as they try to kind of crack down on things. Are you a Simpsons fan, Ken? That's another question we've never.
I am a Simpsons fan, but by now there's so many episodes. There's probably at least as many I haven't seen as I have.
Well, this is one you might have seen. Have you ever seen the one where the Simpsons discover that their town is a dry town?
Watch the world's biggest tennis stars clash in the California desert at the BNP Paribas Open, live on Tennis Channel.
How do they get to these shots?
Tune in daily for exclusive first ball to last coverage from Indian Wells and witness all of the jaw-dropping action as the game's top men and women square off at one of the greatest events in sports. It's tennis magic you need to see to believe. The BNP Paribas Open, live on Tennis Channel and streaming on the Tennis Channel app.
Empower. Claire is practicing her breathing for her upcoming yoga retreat in Bali. Has she ever done yoga before? No. But Claire worked with Empower on her savings and investment strategy. She got good at money, so she can be a little bad. Empower. Invest well, live a little. Join our 19 million customers today at empower.com.
Past performance is not indicative of future returns. Investing involves risk. You may lose money. Advisory services are provided for a fee by Empower Advisor Group, LLC, EAG, a registered investment advisor with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Om Namaste.
Oh, yes, I have seen that. Yeah.
And one of the greatest lines in The Simpsons of all time is when Homer says, listen, once I realized that prohibition was about drinking, I was all for it. But as soon as we got rid of the alcohol, we discovered that prohibition doesn't work. There's a lot of truth to that, actually. Because what ends up happening societally in the aftermath of the 18th Amendment are some of the things, like words that we take for granted now, like bootlegging. No, that was not initially, downloading illicit content. What that was individuals like Al Capone, manufacturing and moving alcohol around. And then that also led to things like today. There's actually one here in Oklahoma City. I don't know if they're in your town. One of the cool things that people like to do, they'll have like modern day speakeasies. So even though they don't have to hide, they're bars that will hide in town to be cool, right? You've got to figure out where they are. There's actually an Oklahoma speakeasy, and I can't honestly tell you where it is, otherwise I can't go back. But it is it is in downtown Oklahoma City. You don't actually have to hide, but you get those kinds of things. Now, what's weird is the other thing that makes the 18th Amendment historically worth studying is it is the only amendment that has explicitly been and entirely undone, right? So by the time, 1920, it goes into effect, but by the time we get to the 1930s, prohibition is so deeply unpopular, and in part, it is as a result of there hadn't been a lot of thought. There were a lot of people employed when it came to alcohol. And so this happens right at the beginning of the Great Depression. And there's a lot of evidence to suggest that the 18th Amendment contributed to the Great Depression. And so with a need for jobs and revenue, many saw the repeal of prohibition as a way to stimulate the economy. And so we end up with the 21st Amendment. And so on March 22nd, 1933, Congress passes the 21st Amendment, again, the only amendment that explicitly undoes the other. And it says the 18th article of amendment to the Constitution of the United States is hereby repealed, which led to a whole patchwork of things. So, the 18th and the 21st, again, they don't count anymore in a sense, Ken, but the stories of why they existed and the only amendment to get undone do make them worthy of at least a little bit of a conversation. So you had talked about it, an interesting part of the story at the beginning of it as it relates to some states and a Supreme Court case even that made it possible. So take us through some of that. Unfortunately, I have to interrupt myself because that brings us to the end of the ad-supported preview. There's so much more that Ken and I get into as we go into the 18th and 21st Amendments, and I'd love for you to be a part of that, but that means you're going to have to become a supporter of the show. So please head down to the show notes or head to politicsguys.com/support now so you too can get the midweek episode. We'd love for you to be a part of that. There are so many different levels of plans. You can find us on Patreon. Again, head down to the show notes or head to politicsguys.com/support so you can get the midweek episode and so much more, like our all access Discord channel. If you want to reach out to us, if you're just having a tough time, we'd love for you to reach out to us at mail@politicsguys.com. Don't forget that subscribing, rating, and reviewing helps us with those algorithms. So please push those forward. As always, I end the show with a special thanks to the executive producers of the Politics Guys, who are Wilma Marino, Daniel Toe, Ryan Beasley, and Don Oglesby. We will have a full episode this weekend. I hope you'll join us then.